Thank you for clicking on this video. If we're meeting for the first time, the About section of my YouTube channel gives you a brief bio. And below each video, there are several ways you can help if you want to help out in some way. Talk Thing number 21 is part 2 of Talk Thing number 11, Moment to Moment. In each of my talks, I utilize a scripture passage or two. In this talk, I am coming from a New Testament book called Ephesians. It's Paul's letter to the Ephesians, chapter 5, verses 15 through 17. I invite you to hear these words. So give careful attention to how you live. Be thoughtfully intentional in your steps. Don't waste your time senselessly. Instead, live wisely, always making the most of every breathing moment, because these days are painfully evil. Let's go over that again. Always making the most of every breathing moment, because these days are painfully evil. Stop living by thoughtless distraction and careless preoccupation, but be wise by realizing what the Lord's will is, which means taking in and putting together what the Lord wants you to do. I just read 68 words. Now I'm going to distill these 68 words into 5 words. God, us, this, here, now. In Talk Thing number 11, I mispronounced a Latin phrase. I'm not going to mispronounce it again, but the phrase means seize the moment. Here's my question. What if every moment is the moment? Kind of sounds like that's what those 3 verses are saying. Every moment is the moment. How often are you and I showing up in the moment? How often are we behind the moment because we're recycling or reliving something that happened back then? How often are you and I in front of the moment because we're worried about something that hasn't happened yet? How often are you and I actually next to the moment because we're distracted, we're preoccupied, and so we miss the moment? I miss countless moments. But I want to tell you 2 quick stories about when my wife Carla and I, by God's grace, only by God's grace, seized the moment. A few days ago, we were driving to somebody's house. I was driving, Carla texted, and the person at the house indicated that she needed a Mighty Mocha from Quick Trip. We didn't know we were going to stop at Quick Trip until we were already in the car. And so we stopped at Quick Trip. We got a Mighty Mocha cappuccino. All of a sudden, on the floor, practically under my feet, was a $20 bill. It was folded lengthways. I picked it up. I asked Carla if it was hers, and Carla said it wasn't. I already knew it wasn't mine. So I just walked over to the counter. I handed it to the employee behind the counter, and I said out loud, somebody may be looking for this. I didn't even identify what this is. That's when I noticed next to the counter there was a woman. The reason I didn't notice her is because she was bent over. When I said those words, she popped up, and as she stood up, she asked, "Is it a folded $20 bill? I can't find mine." And the Quick Trip employee handed her lost $20 bill. I wish you could have seen her face, the relief that flooded her face. Carla and I got back in the car. We weren't proud of ourselves. It was a humble honor to seize that moment by God's grace. And then the next day, we were at Walmart. We were doing what you probably do either online or in person. We had a list and we were completing the list. And then it was time to get in line. When Carla and I are together, I don't choose the line anymore because history has taught me that when I choose the line, it slows down. The self-checkout line was really long. And so Carla just pointed to a line. When it got to be our turn, the Walmart employee behind the counter, he started processing our stuff. And I said, "Hi, how are you?" He looked at me and said, "I am terrible." And we had a freeze frame moment. We were making eye contact. And when he said that, in response to my question, I said, "Okay." He gulped. And looking into my eyes, he said, "Thank you." And while he finished with us, he told us what it was like to be him that morning. He lives in a lot of pain. He's young, he's a kid, but he has a lot of lower back issues. It runs in the family. He has very painful joints. He had been on his feet for a long time. He didn't know when he was going to get a break, and he really needed somebody to just say, okay, to agree with him that man, he was having a terrible time. And so we finished and we left. We weren't proud of ourselves. Carla was the one who seized the moment by pointing to that line, because that kid, he really needed somebody to say to him, okay. I think that's what God says when we show up in prayer and we tell God that we're doing terribly. God, us, this, here, now. Jesus says the same thing in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 6, verses 33 and 34. And I'm reading from Eugene Peterson's The Message. Here are the words of Jesus. Steep your life in God reality, God initiative, God provisions. Don't worry about missing out. You'll find all your everyday human concerns will be met. Give your entire attention to what God is doing right now, and don't get worked up about what may or may not happen tomorrow. God will help you deal with whatever hard things come up when the time comes. 61 words. But I think I might be able to give it to you in 5. God, us, this, here, now.